What's up, guys? Here to debrief the Crosspointe Community Church shooting that happened on Sunday in Wayne, Michigan. Pretty wild scene, a lot to learn from and unpack. So here's our debrief. So last Sunday in Wayne, Michigan, fairly small community, pretty small church, about 150 members were at the church at the time this happened, were attacked by a known individual who had attended that church before and had a family member who attends that church and is a member of the church, his mother. So it's significant from a prevention perspective. This person had talked to the pastor and presented some concerning thoughts and ideas, calling himself a prophet or that he was spoken to by God. Not totally unusual in a church environment, religious organization. However, if we are talking from a security team perspective, not that they're divulging all personal conversations, certainly with our security team, but if there's concerning information like that, where somebody is claiming to be a prophet, that is something that should be brought to security team's attention so that we can dig into that a little bit deeper, pay more attention to that particular family and that person. And really, so the threat assessments can be done in order to hopefully steer that person off the path to violence if that's what the threat assessment indicates. So there's our first pre-attack indicators were potentially there, didn't get caught, and that's a lesson learned that we can really take away is talking to our pastors and our folks that are talking to people who are troubled with either mental illness or perceived attachment to evil. We need to know that stuff, okay? So that conversation needs to happen. On this particular day, this individual arrived. So the service had started. From what I've read, the doors were locked. Everybody was inside when this service began. And this individual was driving erratically, according to police, in the parking lot. There was an individual who was arriving late, another parishioner, and saw this suspect get out of his car wearing a tactical vest, a long gun, had a pistol on him, an obvious threat. The person that was arriving late was not a part of the security team, just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and was incredibly courageous. So he witnessed not only the person driving erratically, but get out of the vehicle with all these guns, which was an apparent attack. And that individual began shooting at the church, at the building itself. And the parishioner that arrived late made the decision, incredibly courageous, to try to neutralize that person by using his vehicle. So he ran over and hit and struck the shooter, which disabled him and did not allow him to get to at least to the doors and try to breach or get into the church, which is amazing. At that point, a church safety team member or security guard, the news reports state that a security guard was struck in the leg, but safety team members is what is reported, returned fire towards this individual and neutralized the threat. Great response in a sense that that individual was not able to get into the church, where it would have been a very, very difficult situation and lots of casualties would have been highly likely. Other reports have been noted that inside of the church, initially, as with every active shooter that happens, even safety team members were going through this where in our mind, we deny what is in front of us and we assume something else. So many people thought that it was a jackhammer is what's being reported, noise that they heard rather than gunfire and things of that nature. So often they think that as fireworks, our minds go to something that it can be explained versus evil happening. And so that delays our response sometimes. In this case, a safety team member came into the congregation and said, "Get out." And at that point, several people began to go towards the back of the church, which is good, away from the threat, and then actually exited the building. Here's a lesson learned on emergency protocols. So what we teach is, in this case, where a threat or hazard is outside of the church, we're going to go into a protocol called lockdown. So that's the language we use. And then the action that follows that is to secure the perimeter, keep bad guy outside, good guys inside, unless there's active killing, which is the case in this particular instance where the person is actually actively trying to kill people. In that case, the security team members are not going to waste time and wait on police. They're going to actually go and engage the threat. However, all of our congregation ought to stay inside. So thanks be to God, with this evacuation that took place, they didn't run into gunfire or multiple other threats that are out there, our innocent folks. But when there's a threat or a hazard outside of the building, we want to keep our innocent folks inside of the building and defend it. If that means going to the threat in the parking lot, then that's what that means. But in this case, avoiding pushing a lot of innocent people outside of the building where we don't know where the threat is would have been a better process and fit that protocol of a lockdown. So lastly, I would just say is external patrols. So in this particular case, from everything that I've read and what people have been saying, the security team was inside of the building. They may have had a presence outside, but like many cases I always talk about is that these folks show up after an event begins, a service begins, like 10, 15 minutes, which is about what happened here, so that they can get the biggest bang for their buck. So security team members, from all that I've read and seen, were inside of the building. They had to leave the building in order to neutralize the threat. And then they had this parishioner that neutralized this guy initially too. So that was a godsend for that guy being there. So the other protocol perspective that I would bring out is having that roving external patrol is hugely important. And if you're going to run rifles on a security team, that's where you're going to want to have those rifles, is on the external patrol, because we're seeing on these church shootings and these other shootings elsewhere, when they are an active attacker, they make it very obvious. They want to show up with as much stuff as they can so they can get as many kills as they can, and they're not hiding it. And so if we can identify them early and fight them outside of the protected environment, we're way, way ahead of the game. And so that's why we need roving external patrols. It didn't appear that was the case in this case, but lessons learned, right? So having that external patrol is going to pick up on that earlier, going to get you resources quicker. And then the last thing is, all this ended probably before 911 was ever even called. Police were never going to get there in time to resolve this situation. So it's imperative that churches, schools, businesses have a armed response with some people who are vetted and trained on site, because this stuff happens so fast. This is a small community in Michigan. You would never expect this thing to pop off here. And who knows this guy's mental state of why he did it. It doesn't really matter. Fact is that it is happening, so we have to prepare for it. And we do that by having vetted, trained folks who know how to respond and can save lives whenever it is necessary. So hope this finds you well. God bless. Take care. See you.